Now we take you to an interview I had done earlier with Mark Shriver, who is president of Save the Children Action Network. He's also an author who wrote a memoir about his father called A Good Man, Rediscovering My Father, Sergeant Shriver. Mark's latest book is entitled Pilgrimage, My Search for the Real Pope Francis. I had a chance to talk with Mark about this book and what he discovered writing it. Joining us now on Encounters, Mark Shriver. Thank you so much for being with us, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
The author of this book, Pilgrimage, My Search for the Real Pope Francis, and we're excited to have you here. And,
thank you.
Maybe if we could go all the way back to that monumentous moment, him walking out to the balcony over the crowds in St. Peter's Square and sort of humbly asked for people's prayer and told them to go home and get some rest. They'd been out there so long. During the course of your research, did you find that humility was something that he carried with him in his early years?
It's an amazing scene, wasn't it? And then the next day when he offered to pay his hotel bill, and just a couple of weeks later when he washed the feet of those young kids who had been arrested, including the Muslim girl, that humility is throughout his life, and it's really obviously a hallmark of his papacy, and one of the real attributes, I think, that characterizes his life from a young priest right up through his time in the Jesuits to his exile as a Jesuit to as bishop and cardinal. The humility and mercy, and obviously his profound faith in God, just jump out in the book.
You talked to people that knew him. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about them, maybe some of the common threads that you found as you interviewed these people.
Well, the book is really a story of a collection of stories of people that were admirers of the Pope, friends of the Pope from Argentina and Italy and all around the world, and some detractors as well, people that disagree with him. And it's trying to paint a picture of who the man really is. And that was what the pilgrimage for me was about and continues today. And I think what I really learned was this profound sense of humility. I went down, Kevin, and saw his rooms where he lived in Buenos Aires, a really small little room with a double bed, a bureau with 3 tiny drawers, and a place to kneel and a place to sit. It's consistent throughout his life, the desire to go out and serve people, but also that profound faith. So you see that in the idea of mercy, which we just ended this extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy. And that really is the hallmark of Pope Francis's papacy.
Yeah, and also sort of a trend of going against the tide, it seems like, for the Pope. I remember when he first became Pope, they were showing pictures of him as a cardinal taking the bus to work.
Yes.
Things like that you wouldn't normally, I guess, expect.
I talked to a number of guys and women that were in the villas, the very poor areas of Buenos Aires, who told me that he would come down on public transportation and walk to 2 or 3 blocks from the bus stop over into their community. His shoes were all muddy, that he was sweating on many occasions because it gets so hot in Buenos Aires in the summertime down there. So this man has consistently been who he is. I thought, those first few gestures may have been PR stunts, but they're not. And these stories that come from people, not big shots, not the president of Argentina or senators or the governors or the political powers to be. These are the stories of real human beings telling me who Pope Francis really is. And that's been a real challenge to who I am as a supposedly progressive Catholic. He really challenges me to my core. Whether you're conservative or progressive, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, this guy doesn't fit in the box because he is really listening to his boss. And his boss is Jesus Christ. And he doesn't care about a 2-year or 4-year election cycle or being popular. So he goes against the grain and some of the popular thoughts today in America. But that's why he's such a challenge. He challenges us all.
Yeah. And I know he had I don't know too much about it, but I know he had a special relationship with his grandmother as well.
His grandmother, Rosa, was a wonderful immigrant from Italy, stood up on a chair in a town square in Italy and denounced Mussolini, took her son and husband and moved to Argentina. Her son, obviously, is Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Pope Francis's dad. So you can see that relationship with refugees. He's an immigrant. He's a first-generation Argentinian. And his grandmother taught him Catholicism, lives of the saints, the rosary, how to go to church, what to say in church. And it's that earthy Catholicism, I think, that has had a profound impact on the Pope still today.
Yeah.
It's a great story. That grandmother in that very serene neighborhood, peaceful neighborhood, but also some real pain in his life when his family experienced financial troubles. And I think that's made him sensitive to immigrants, but also to those of us that are struggling financially, spiritually, and emotionally, which is all of us, really, because we all got problems. We're all sinners, right, as he says. But his message is really about forgiveness and mercy and faith in God.
And you know, just hearing him talk to the importance of having grandparents in
Yes.
people's lives, you know, and to sort of pass on the faith to
He
them.
talks about that quite a bit,
Yeah.
and he brings it up, especially when he's with young people, about listening to your grandparents. And his grandmother had a profound impact on him. Wrote him a note the day he became a priest, and he keeps that note in his breviary, reads it every day. So she continues to have an impact on him. That peasant woman, as she's been described, poor, but a devout Catholic, and open to other ideas and open to inclusion, which is the great Jesuit idea of going to the frontier and accompanying people on their journey on life. We're all pilgrims, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
And that's what the book is about, is trying to figure out how to incorporate joy into my life, and hopefully it'll challenge the reader as well and bring them joy.
And just a final question, too. I know this is your second book, and you wrote about your dad in your first book, too. But maybe if you could, just looking at experiences of writing about your dad, writing about the Pope, and maybe some tips that you've learned about daily living, just you know, being a faithful person in your daily
The
life.
book I wrote on my pop, it was called The Good Man, Rediscovering My Father, Sergeant Shriver. And my mom and dad were daily communicants. And I really do believe that their unbelievable energy, their joy, they went to work every day. Never a day off, right until Alzheimer's robbed my dad of the ability to go to work. My mom suffered a stroke and then, you know, passed away a couple years later. But they were so joyful because I think they really believed that every day was an opportunity, every interaction was a moment to realize God and to see God and feel God and try to make the world a little bit better place. It sounds kind of corny, but as St. Ignatius has said, you know, God is in all people and in every interaction. And I think they really believe that. And I think Pope Francis believes that as well. So it's not going to work, it's not a drag. They're joy-filled, which is different than being happy every day.
Yeah.
But it's that grounding in their faith. It was getting on their knees every day and realizing that they're not God and that they need God's help.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the messages from the book on my dad and also the one on Pope Francis.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being with us today. And people can get this anywhere.
It's everywhere.
Where good books are sold.
Where good books are sold and maybe not so good ones.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Kevin.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Encounter right after this.